Hello and welcome to Living Japan, the channel which looks at moving, visiting and living abroad here in Japan. My name's Max, and on this channel I'm going to be sharing with you some of my experiences of moving from London over here to Chiba, Japan. Now, before I get started on the channel today, I have one small announcement, but I thought it was a nice announcement. So last week we actually broke 10 subscribers. It's a very small milestone in the channel, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to everyone for your support, and I really hope that in the future this channel grows and that you guys stick with me. Anyway, last week we looked at finding a job in Japan. So where you can find a job, the kind of jobs that will be open to you as someone who's not a native Japanese speaker, and some things to get ready for if you're going to work here in Japan. This week we're going to be looking at visas. So getting a visa to live in another country is pretty confusing, and coming here to Japan is no different. Before I start, visas are constantly changing. Every year, rules and legislations are slightly different. Now also, visas are going to change depending on which country you're coming from and which country you're going to. So in this video, I'm basing all of my facts on coming from the UK over here to Japan. Now, much of the information is probably going to be the same. However, if you're not travelling from the UK to Japan, or you're checking this video months or years after I've posted it, I definitely recommend checking some of the links in the description and just making sure that the information hasn't changed too much. Now, visas. What is a visa and why do you need one? Well, a visa is just permission from a country allowing you to come to that country for a period of time and perform a task. Depending on that country's agreement with your country, and depending on the task that you're going to do, depends on the kind of visa that you're going to need. So, why do you need a visa? Well, to put it simply, if you don't have a visa, you'll be living in that country illegally, and that's not good for you or for the country. For you, it means you're not protected by the laws or by civil rights, and for the country, it means that you're not in the system correctly. So finding a visa in Japan can be rather difficult. There's 27 different visas to choose from. So let's split these visas into two different categories to make it easy. The first category is short-term stay visas, and the second category is long-term stay visas. So the first category is visas lasting from 1 day right the way up to 90 days of stay. And if you're one of 68 exempt countries, you do not need a visa to stay in Japan for up to 90 days. In those 90 days, you can visit, you can be a tourist, and you can work. So the second category, long-term visas. Now this is a visa for anyone who's going to be staying in Japan from 90 days right the way up to 5 years. So in the long-term stay category, we have three different kinds of visa. The first is the working visa. This allows you to come over to Japan and work. The second is non-working visas. These allow you to come over to Japan and study or do training or have a medical procedure done or care for someone. And the third is a family visa. This is the kind of visa you would go for if you were getting married to someone who was a Japanese resident, if you had children who were Japanese residents, or if your parents were Japanese residents. It's also the visa that you use if you've been in Japan for a very, very, very long time. So these are the three main categories, and the main one I'm going to be focusing on today is, of course, working visas. So the five main ones we have for working visas are, number one, the business manager visa. Pretty much self-explanatory. If you want to come over here to Japan and be a manager of a business, then you want a business manager visa. Quite handy if you want to take over from someone else or basically run a company. Usually a company that's already here in Japan. Number two, we have intercompany transfer visa. Again, pretty self-explanatory. This is a visa for moving from one country to another country but staying in the same company. The third is the engineering and specialist in humanities visa. Now, the Japanese Immigration Service in 2015 decided to take their two most popular visas and put them into one category. And this basically allows you to teach in Ikaiwas, it allows you to do computer engineering, it allows you to be self-employed, and there's many other uses for this visa. So if you're interested in getting this visa, definitely check it out at the embassy before you come to Japan. The fourth is what we call the business startup visa, and that's for anyone wishing to come to Japan and start up their own business here. I did say there was 5, and the last one is kind of a bonus. It's what they call the working holiday visa. This is a special visa specific to Japan that it allows people of the age between 25 and 35 to come over to Japan for 1 year, work and be a tourist, and kind of have a cultural exchange over here in Japan. It's pretty much a good idea if you're interested in coming over to Japan and you're maybe having a gap year. This is the visa I would definitely recommend checking out. These are the different types of visas. What do you need to get one? Well, the first thing you're going to need is some paperwork. Most obviously, you'll need your passport, you'll need your proof of address, your proof of earnings, but also you're going to need your proof of education, your degree certificate. You're also going to need a letter from your employer in Japan and a letter from your employer in your home country or your previous employer in your home country. So that's most of the paperwork you're going to need. There's also a certificate of eligibility, which isn't required, but it's definitely recommended. So what is a certificate of eligibility? A certificate of eligibility is just confirmation from a sponsor in Japan that you're not lying on your visa request form. It's usually given out by a school, a boss, or by a family member already living in Japan. Now, all it does is confirm that what you said you're going to do is actually happening. So your boss usually says, yes, I've offered him a job. Or your family member says, yes, we are related. Or your school says, yes, he has been accepted to this course. The best way to think of it is like a seal of approval from the Japanese government. They've checked your documentation and yes, it is correct. Now, in saying this, if you have a certificate of eligibility, it does not mean you will get a visa. It's just the approval of the Japanese government saying that they've checked the information that you've sent them and it is correct. It doesn't necessarily mean that you meet the credentials to have a Japanese visa. So don't get ahead of yourself and book your flights and your house and everything before you have that visa. Now, the second thing to know about the certificate of eligibility is that you cannot apply for a certificate of eligibility. It can only be applied for by the sponsor in Japan. You also don't need a certificate of eligibility if you already live in Japan. You only need it if you're living outside of Japan and you're entering Japan for the first time. So, after you've got your certificate of eligibility, you can then apply for your visa. It takes around 2 months. The reason for this is the certificate of eligibility takes 2 months to fact check, print up and send to your country. After this, the visa itself only takes 5 days to process, so it's quite a speedy process after that. The whole process is going to cost you. There's 2 different kinds of visas you can apply for, a single entry visa or a multiple entry visa. Now, side note, in 2012, the Japanese Immigration Service said that you don't need a multiple entry visa unless you're going to be leaving the country for over 12 months. And as most of us only go on holiday for a couple of weeks or a month at the most of us don't need to apply for multiple entry visas. So, if you're going to get a single entry visa, that's going to cost you £21, and if you're going to get a multiple entry visa, that's going to cost you £42. Now, to put this into some kind of perspective, when I got my visiting visa for China, I think I paid around about £120. So it's kind of reasonably priced, I think, visiting Japan. In short, we have 2 types of visas, short and long. Short going from 1 to 3 months and long going from 3 months up to 5 years. The 5 most common working visas are business manager, intercompany transfer, engineering and specialist in humanities, business startup and working holiday visa. You're going to pay £21 for a single entry visa, which means you're not leaving the country for more than a year, or £42 for a multiple entry visa, which means you're leaving for a longer period of time. And the whole thing should take around about 2 months to get done. Now, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to see more, hit the bell icon I'm going to put a lot of the information that I've mentioned and the sources that I've used down in the description below, including the exempt countries, a link to the Japanese immigration, a really cool link that I found to an organisation of Japanese lawyers, and basically they've put together a website that explains the Japanese visa system pretty simply. They're also there for advice if you have any questions about coming to Japan, and I found their website really useful for research on this video. So next week I'm going to be talking about moving to Japan, the actual physical moving your stuff from your home country over to Japan. Some companies you can use, things that you should take with you, things that don't really matter that much, and how much it might cost. Until then, have a lovely rest of the week and peace.